Hey, hi, Ingrid. How are you? How are things?
I'm good. I'm good. Yes, congratulations for your recent PB.
Great.
Great run.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. Thank you. So, guys, I mean, look, I mean, at the sort of highest level for all those, who sort of don't know who sort of Ingrid Anand is, he is a sort of five times Ironman finisher, probably one of India's sort of finest triathletes that, sort of, I mean, I have seen. The sort of sheer volume, the sort of sheer hard work that this guy sort of puts in is just sort of very, very inspiring. He's done sort of Ironman sort of, I mean, in sort of five different countries all over the world. And, to be sort of very honest with you, Ingrid, it is a sort of absolute pleasure to have you here. But just basically before we just sort of get started into the whole sort of deep dive on your training, on your structuring, if you could just give us a just the sort of brief background on yourself in terms of basically what makes Ingrid Anand the person he is. In many ways, how did your journey start? What sort of really sort of forced you to be to basically be where you are today? And sort of what really drives you? That would be sort of very interesting for us to just know upfront, and then we can take it from there.
Well, I'll just give a brief background about how it started and how, I mean, where I'm today. So basically, athletics had been part of my life even during the school days. And to be very honest, I mean, I think probably in the 10th class examination, I was failing to get into the science stream. There was just less, I mean, I was short of 3 marks to get the science. Otherwise, I would have been in commerce. And but then I had a certificate of 100-meter race at the state level, Gujarat, where for the first time ever in the state level, a podium was given to the fourth position. Usually it is first, second, and third, but
Yeah.
I got the certificate on the podium because I qualified in the qualifying time of somewhere around 12.6 seconds or something like that for 100 meters.
Wow, that is fast.
Yeah, and in CBSE and Kendra Vidyalaya, they have certain grace marks for the state level if you have done something on the state level. So I got four marks for that, and finally I entered into science, and then I did my engineering and my masters in project construction and project management. So
Right.
after passing out from school, I had been always interested uh, in the gym, and I I started my fitness journey with the strength training. So
Right.
so if you ask me, my first love is strength training in the gym, and I remember somewhere in 2007, I saw a man running on a treadmill for 45 minutes. And I was like, how can a person run for 45 minutes on treadmill? Because, in the gym, you are always encouraged to lift the weights and not do much of cardio.
Correct.
That is a usual way of training in the gym. So
Correct.
that was something, a kind of a goal for me to run 45 minutes continuously.
Yeah.
And I remember I really started I tasted the first flavor of endurance sport when I was working with KPMG, and I was on a break to Ahmedabad for a weekend, and I read an
Yeah.
article about Milind Soman running from Mumbai to Delhi or something like that. And I was like, I mean, how can a person run so long? And that
Yeah.
inspired me to take my first long run of 15 kilometers, and then I had to take auto and come back to home. So
Amazing.
yeah, so that's how when I did my first run, I think there was something about the run probably that makes you feel free or connected to your own self. I would say I started in 2011 with my first half marathon, which I managed and survived to complete. And in 2014 or 15, I heard about an Ironman, and I was like, no, no, man, this is not meant for human being. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt 21 kilometer to be too long, and full marathon is like, it's a big load on the body. And when I read about an
Right.
Ironman for the first time, I said, no, 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 this is not meant for human being. Probably that thought might have been in my subconscious mind, where, somewhere in the back of my mind, I had a goal of, experiencing this particular race, which is considered to be the world toughest one-day endurance race.
Yeah.
And cutting short, in 2016, a very close friend of mine based in US, she gave me a surprise gift of Ironman Malaysia registration. And from 2016 onwards, I started getting into the structured training. And what exactly the structured training, I started learning from 2016. And since then, I'm in love with triathlon. Triathlon is something I really, really enjoy.
Got it, Ingrid. No, just sort of, thank you very much for that, sort of brief background. I think the, funny part is that, for the two of us, our journeys have been so similar because, basically I was also, at KPMG when my sort of running journey had started. I was also, so in many ways, my first run was also after my 10th grade. And, my first, sort of goal in running was only that, look, if I can just do one stretch of, sort of Marine Drive once in say 45 minutes, then I'll be a sort of very happy man. Of
Yeah.
course, just sort of over time, the walks turned into jogs and the jogs turned into runs. But I think for sort of most of us on this call as well, the sort of beginnings have been sort of, just sort of so humble. And then over time, you just sort of stay with the process and just sort of try and be more and more consistent. I think that is what is, just sort of helped most of us.
So, I mean, the training for triathlon is very different from the running, given the three disciplines that we have to train. In fact, four disciplines: swim,
Correct.
bike, run, and strength and core conditioning, strength training. So, I believe it's quite manageable because if you consider on weekdays, the training volume is somewhere between 1.5 to 2 hours, and on the weekend it's really high. On the weekend, if you consider full iron distance, on the weekend the training volume on Saturday could be around 2 to 4 hours, and Sunday could be 4 to 6 hours. So I think it's only the weekend
Wow.
where the training volume is very high. Otherwise, I believe weekdays are easily manageable. Anyone, I mean, a lot of people who have a challenging and demanding day job, they are training for triathlon. And the only thing, in triathlon, the most important time wise you can manage if you have a structure in place. You need to have
Yeah.
a structure in place. I mean, for example, if one run workout which is of 45 minutes, another run workout which could be of 1 hour 30 minutes, if both can deliver the same result, you have to juggle between them, because ultimately
Correct.
time is something that we have to manage. I think it you can take a range of 14 to 18 hours
Got it.
during the
Got it.
peak phase. And the peak phase is say for around 4 to 5 weeks, not more than that. So once you are
Got it.
peaking towards the race, during those weeks the volume is high. It could somewhere be between 15 to 18 hours or 19 hours, and after that again you taper and then you do the race. So otherwise, at the highest level, I would say 16 to 18 hours.
Wow. That is sort of massive volume. Just
Yeah.
basically in terms of, sort of number of hours that you're actually sort of working out.
So ideally, recovery has basically three components. So one is the sleep. Number one, it is very very important. I remember there was a time when I used to get up very very early on the weekend, even after not having the complete sleep, just for the sake of running in early morning with a group. But I think in the last few years I realized that the sleep, a complete sleep, is very much important. You should wake up fresh so that you are ready to put the good efforts on your training. And then I
Right.
started listening to my body. So I listened to my body, as in it is fresh in the morning, it wakes up as much as natural as possible, and try to have the adequate sleep. So that is number one part of the recovery. Number two is recovery through nutrition, that we will cover in the nutrition part that I'll discuss with you. And number three is a sort of, I found that it's important to do a lot of stretching, a bit of passive recovery with a sort of massage at the home or foam roller. All these things plays a role. But in my view, I think number one, I would say sleep. Number two is recovery through nutrition, and number three are all the small factors like massage or foam rolling or stretching, all these things. So basically divided into these three factors: recovery. Cool. So, well, coming to the nutrition, I think, I remember, yes, probably we both had the same journey, I believe. When we started running long distances, we always used to feel that, okay, today we can indulge in whatever we like. And
Yeah,
then the motto was run to eat. You run really long, really a good volume just to eat whatever you like without any guilt. So over the years, I realized, I think if you want to improve yourself in the endurance sport, you have to make a belief that eat better to perform better.
yeah,
How each meal can help you to perform better, how each meal can add value to your performance and your recovery. So even
right.
during the long like weekend volume, when I get back to home, I always eat clean. Once in a while, I indulge in something that I love, but the focus has shifted towards eat well to perform well, rather than you run a long distance and eat whatever you like. It doesn't uh, go in a long way if one want to perform or make a better performance and recovery. Coming to the second point in nutrition, is I'm a plant-based athlete now for almost last say 15 months, and I,
Awesome, awesome.
yeah, and I think I feel really good. The 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 three advantage that I talk from the performance point of view, uh, for the plant, what is the impact of plant-based nutrition for the athletes or the triathletes? Number one, is the recovery is really really good. I mean, recovery is fast, recovery is good. Second, I feel light throughout the day. And third, the stomach is in control. Your gut is quite good with the plant based. That these are my three observations in my journey. Uh, Prior to 2019, November 2019, I used to eat dairy and egg. And I remember back in the gym, in the days when I used to go to gym, I used to eat around 18 or 19 eggs, 18 or 20 eggs per day. And
Wow.
prior to 2008, I was a very very heavy non-veg consumer. I mean, I used to eat non-veg 5 days a week. The Tuesday was the day where our family no one eats non-veg because of certain rituals. Otherwise, I would gorge on the non-veg all the time. Probably, I would really confess here that I started eating couple of green vegetables after 2008. Before that, I was only into the non-veg. And
Awesome, awesome, Ingrid. So, you know what? I mean, at sort of some level, my journey has also been sort of very similar in the sense that, basically I was a sort of vegetarian earlier, but over the last 15 months, so, sort of same here, basically sometime around
yeah,
sort of November 2019 is when I had turned, vegan and plant-based. Basically since then, I think, the sort of same observations that, sort of you've had, basically recovery becomes much better. Your gut is in sort of far better control. And I think lastly, the sort of body composition also just sort of becomes far better and, just sort of far leaner. I mean, I've seen
uh,
performance
uh,
improve tremendously.
absolutely. I would like to say one point from November 2019 to even March 2020, even today, I did my body analysis done to check the fat and muscle percentage. In the last 15 months, I think my muscle percentage has been maintained or probably gone up in some of the areas, while my fat percentage has gone down. And
Awesome.
I think it's something where I can quantify with the numbers that I measure every month. Yes, I'll go back to the. I'll go a little back to this question. When I used to go to gym, back then supplement was were not that famous. It could be afforded by very people who had a very international exposure, or they who had a good pocket or deep pocket, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So during my entire tenure in the gym, I never took any supplement. To be very honest, I
Hmm.
never took any
Hmm.
whey protein during my entire tenure of gym for almost 18 years or so. And
Wow.
then I was never drawn towards the supplement. So right from the beginning, I had a approach to get the maximum protein from the natural sources. Back then, it was non-veg and eggs and everything. So
Yeah.
my protein requirement was met only by the natural sources. But now your question is very valid now, since we both are on the plant-based diet, and it is a very common question that we face probably anytime every time when we talk about the plant-based meal, and from our fellow athletes or the other people who are in general. I think since I've done the certification with the Ironman University for the coach, and nutrition was a big chapter. Even my wife, Shelly, is a nutritionist, and she has a ample amount of knowledge in the reality. The protein has
Awesome.
been overhyped. To be very honest, the protein has been overhyped. I mean, even if I look at my volume of training, I think 1.2 gram to 1.5 gram is more than enough,
I
while
agree
we
with
have been
you.
always taught about 2 to 2.5 gram per kg of body weight. I think my training is quite intensive. Training for triathlon, full Ironman distance is quite intensive. Even we can meet our protein with the 1.2 gram per kg of body weight. Lately, I realized that it's important to have the variety of the food. When you have the meal throughout the day, you should look at how many colors do you consume. It's good to have the colors of the food, different colors
Yeah.
of bell peppers. I never loved the bell peppers, but now I started loving it. So the whole
Yeah. Yeah.
idea about the meal, coming to the macro. So honestly, I don't track macros so much, because I see my meal as a whole balanced meal, which has a good fat, which has protein, carbohydrate, and it should have the fibers. Fibers are most important. I think in
Correct.
current days, in current scenario, more than carb, protein, and fat, we should be looking at the fiber. Fiber
Yeah.
is real now. So fiber intake is very important for us. So I see a meal as a whole, which should have a good amount of protein, carb, fat. Now the question: how do I get the protein? What are my sources of protein that I consume? So I consume a lot of peanut butter. I know it has fat. It has good fat. I know this question may come. Second, I consume a good amount of tofu, and I make sure the tofu that I consume is organic and non-GMO. And it's one of, trust me, yes, I would recommend one of the tofu to you and to all the people who are trying to go to the plant based or are already in the plant based. There is a company called Health on Plant based in Bangalore.
Okay.
Their tofu is something that any paneer lover can leave the paneer. It's so
Health
good,
on plants, is it?
Health on Plant, very very
Awesome.
good tofu,
Awesome.
very good.
Awesome.
And they have
We
some
will
nice
try that out.
flavors. Yes, yes, amazing. So I rely on tofu. I rely on peanut butter. I have started consuming tempeh. Tempeh is again a fermented product of the soya, and it is also available online. And apart from that, I take now. So now coming to the supplement, my answer is still continue, because these are the natural sources. Of course, lentil, pulses. I consume a lot of hummus. I love hummus. I love chickpea hummus, and I love pea hummus also. The matar ka jo hummus hota,
Awesome.
that's very very good.
Yeah.
It's very tasty and very high in protein. So I try
Yeah.
to have the protein from the natural sources, as I mentioned, tofu, peanut butter, lentil, pulses. Some of the vegetables have minor protein as well. So I and then seeds and nuts. So these are my major sources of natural protein. Now coming
Got
to
it.
the supplementation, when I do a really high volume training, maybe on weekends, sometime a week or not, maybe around 2 or 3 times in a month, I consume the protein shake, which is again plant based protein shake. Now a lot of options are available. I personally consume Parched Up plant based protein powder, and Other supplement, if I have to say again, it's a very clean label protein drink, Thrive. Thrive is Bangalore based, and they made the protein drink which had 12.6 gram protein. So it is basically for the snacking option.
Got
So
it.
I mean, this is my complete plate. I don't consume much of wheat. I hardly consume wheat. I consume lot of rice.
Got it. Got it. Same, same. So the sort of funny part here, Ingrid, is that I mean, again, I think our sort of diets are just sort of very, very similar. I mean, I am also just sort of very high on rice.
Hmm.
All of these sort of sources that you have mentioned are just sort of very, very helpful. The sort of one just sort of new source that over the last 1 year and I have learned about is seeds, basically pumpkin seeds.
Yes,
I mean have the sort of highest sort of protein content per
yes,
gram.
yes.
Over the last year, that is something that basically, I mean, I have put into my diet. It has just sort of worked out sort of beautifully for me. Just for the sort of benefit of the sort of audience as well, maybe it is something that you might want to try out. Pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds, chia
Yeah.
seeds, sort of
Chia seed. Chia seed also
extremely
has a
high
good amount
protein
of
content.
protein. Chia seed has a
Yes,
good amount of
yes,
protein per 100 gram. They are
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
cool. So I'll answer this too for the both categories. The runners who are planning to get into triathlon or experience Ironman or triathlon as a sport, and also for the beginners who are starting their journey of the fitness through the endurance sport, or anyone who is planning to get into endurance sport. So
Yeah,
number one question for the number one point for the beginners and the newbies. I mean, see, you had been sedentary all through, or probably you had not been that active. So you have to take it very, very slow. Today, if I tell all of you that Yash is a fantastic runner, he does top three marathon. It took years. It took years, and I mean, we have to be patient. We have to be really patient when it comes to the progressively leading towards the goal. So if you are started really slow, start with the jog, then start with the walk, and then start incorporating jog and walk, and then jog and run, like that. To start slow, those who are planning to get into the running, and even Yash can also share his inputs about the beginner for the runners. Coming to the triathlon, now they have the three sports: swim, bike, and run. Now, if someone who is not a swimmer, the biggest advantage that you have is you are not a swimmer, because a lot of
yeah,
swimmers, they have learned the wrong technique, and it is very difficult to unlearn the wrong and learn the new, because
correct.
in the repetitive movement exercise like swimming and running, it is a repetitive movement, so you form a muscle memory, and then the
Yeah,
muscle behave like that. So even if you are not a runner, I would suggest train with a good running coach who can see your running form and help you to improve that right from the beginning. And the same goes for the swimming as well. So if you learn the basics right from the beginning, it will help you a lot in the journey. You can progress fast, and you can reach your goal faster. Second,
understood.
second point is, like, cycling had been common for all of us. We had been cycling during the school days or maybe later on. So cycling is something, it's a very easy sport. You just have to build the mileage. You just have to build the volume. So run is the only sport which is high impact sport. Cycling, very little impact. Swim, obviously no impact. So this is the impact loading with respect to the three disciplines in the triathlon. So if you are getting into triathlon, I would recommend get a coach or follow a structured program that will help you to enjoy this journey of triathlon injury free, and your body will be able to take the load progressively with a good adaptation and good response. So
Understood.
yeah.
Do you also coaching it? I mean, if any of us sort of want to start that,
Yeah,
sort of our
I,
journeys, can we
I,
sort
I
of reach
do,
out
I
to you?
do, I do train for triathlon and running, and I
Understood.
coach also. I have a coach also. My coach has a coach also. So even it helps a lot. My coach knows where I have to be put. I know where my trainers have to be put, and I think it's a cycle for everyone. Chintan, sleep, as you have mentioned about the sleep pattern, I tell you, as I said in the with the years also, a lot of us, we don't. I mean, we always wake up very early on Saturday and Sunday for a long run, or probably for a long triathlon workout volume. It's very important that we need to have a complete sleep. I tell a lot of runners, for example, the runners who are training for TMM or those kind of events. I said, good, you start late, you will get accustomed to the heat. I mean, don't cut down your sleep and then train. It is not going to be really effective, and in a long run, it will take a toll on your health. So I know everyone want to take a lot of boxes. They want to be the best at the professional life and family life and all that. I think one had to prioritize the the priority of the life, whether it be it profession, family, kids, friends, and the training. And you have to make sure that you get a good sleep. This is, I mean, good sleep, I would say good recovery. So sleep time is very individual. 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. Yeah. So I came from the strength background. I have been, before getting into the endurance sport, I had been into the strength training in the gym for more than 15 years. I would say strength training is really, really important. I think I have been able to come so far in the running because I had a background of strength training. So my body could easily take the training load. I remember I used to do 21-kilometer run, only one run on Sunday, 21 kilometers. And I think now I realize why my body could take it up, because I used to do a lot of strength training. So my body had basically strength to, to stay away from the injury. So your question, yes, you should incorporate strength training right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, it will help you to build a strong core. It will help you to improve your running form, and it will help you to stay away from injury, and your body will be trained and adapted to the increasing load of the training. So strength training should be done right from the beginning. When you start your running program or triathlon program, you should incorporate strength training from the beginning.
So look, you know what, basically, I think the, sort of the most important, sort of source of fuel for runners is carbs. Now the, so now look, sort of basically, once you know that carbs is the most important sort of building block for runners, the most important question is that, just, sort of during a race, how much can your body sort of really tolerate? By that, what I mean is that, for example, a few runners can only take, say, one or two gels, a few can do sort of many more. So, for example, in my sort of last race in Delhi, the way, so look, sort of my fueling plan was basically, I had one, sort of pre-run mix. This is by sort of Unived. Then after that, just at the start of the race, I had one gel. And then every sort of 6 kilometers, I was having one, those sort of large elite gels. So basically, net, I had about 1400 calories in my body over the course of sort of less than 3 hours and over the course of 42 kilometers. However, I could do that because in my training, I have sort of really, sort of taught my body and my gut, in some sense, basically, how do you sort of handle so much of carbs? How do you handle so many calories? So again, just sort of net, my point is, look, it is, just sort of very, very simple that carbs and calories are the only way to basically keep you going during the race. Of course, there is sort of hydration as well. But the point is, how much can you tolerate? So, if you want to sort of tolerate more for your body, the sort of simplest thing is to just basically sort of start training with that.
Absolutely.
So, basically sort of during your training, during your, sort of longer runs, sort of start having, these gels, sort of start seeing, basically which gel works for your body, which one sort of doesn't work for your body. Maybe, say a particular brand won't work for, sort of for you. Just basically sort of figure all of that out on your training runs. But again, just, sort of net, carbs, calories are the most important sort of building blocks sort of during the run.
Wanted to add one point and you have covered that. I think you need this for this answer. I said you need to train for nutrition also. Nutrition is also something that you need to train for. During the course of your training, you can try out different kind of electrolytes or different gels, and then you need to figure out what was good for you. And that thing you have to make with that hydration and nutrition. You have to make your race plan. So in short, train for the nutrition as well, because same thing you are going to repeat in the race. Simple.
Sure, go ahead, Yash.
So yeah, guys, this is sort of the sort of summary of sort of Ingrid Anand. Basically, 5 times Ironman. Sort of Germany, Australia, Philippines, Italy, Malaysia. His fastest is 11 hours 4 minutes in sort of Busselton, Australia. And sort of apart from that, he's been sort of associated with 3 brands: Castelli, CEP, and Fasten Up. 3 full marathons, fastest one being, sort of sub 4, 3:59, 15 plus half marathons with a sort of personal best of 1:37, just sort of several sort of 100-kilometer, sort of races, rides, I mean, probably one of the, sort of biggest sort of endurance junkies you would find over there. Sure. So what? Look, Nikhil. Basically, in terms of deciding number of gels in the race, my sort of simple theory is the more the better. Basically, look, on race day, you want anything that helps you to basically just kind of help you. I mean, look, it is race day. If you can take say one more gel, go ahead, take it. So from that point of view, what is important is to just kind of figure out how many is your body sort of willing to take. So basically, as a sort of rule of thumb, one every 20-30 minutes on race day, or one every sort of 6-7 kilometers could be good. The second thing is basically, how do you figure out if basically you're using fat as fuel or sort of glycogen as fuel? I would say it also depends on basically what have you had before the run. So for example, if you go in the morning for a run, basically sort of without having anything, it's obvious that your body is, sort of largely using fat as fuel, because it is only using the fat that has been sort of made over the last few hours. However, on the other hand, if you're, say, for example, having carbs before the run, if you're having, say, a pre-run mix, most of your sort of energy will be through carbs. That is the sort of basic difference to my mind. Ingrid, if you want to add something there.
So I think you have covered right as far as glycogen store and the fat fuel. Everyone, I mean, glycogen lasts hardly for 30-40 minutes, and then your body hit the either external source of energy, and if you don't provide, it will hit the fat. I think you have covered well. But coming to the number of gels per race or gel time, I would say always train with the nutrition in your training. So, for example, earlier I used to take one gel every 45 minutes. And then I started realizing that I was fading out. If I could take gel every 40 minutes, I can be at the better energy level. And now I'm planning to reduce it to 35 minutes. So, since you have to you have to listen to your body with respect to the energy level. As Yash said, in the race, your only goal is to go fast. And if you need fuel to go fast, take another gel. It's a no-brainer because it's a race. So how do you figure out the number of gels per race? Number one, the number of gels should be timed to the should be mapped to the timing, not the kilometers. Kilometers only if you know the course and if it is flat course, because flat course 6 kilometers could be 30 minutes. If it is hilly, it could be 45 minutes. So it always map that with the time. So for example, if you take one gel every 45 minutes, how do you feel at the end of the training? If you feel I could have done better, or I had a little less energy in that time frame of the gel. For example, one gel every 45 minutes. Reduce it to one gel every 40 minutes and see how it feels. Based on that, you can find out. Like, yes, he needs one gel every 25 minutes. For me, it could be one gel every 35 minutes. So it depends on your body requirement. You have to figure out that. Yeah, I think how do you keep yourself going in case you have a fall during the race? Now, if it is a literal fall, I mean, if you have had a fall from the bike or maybe during the run, I think get up and show up and complete the race. I mean, in Ironman or triathlon, quitting is not an option unless and until if it is to the level where it can be detrimental to health. I mean, you have to take a call. It's a trade-off. If you have fallen and if you had a fall, if you are not injured, if it is minor, just check for few steps. If it feels okay, go and complete the run, don't quit. But if the fall is major where you can't even do anything, then you have to take a hard call. Now coming to the fall in different case, now because you might miss out on your target finish. Yeah, it happens because every race, when you race you have a certain target. If that target is not met, then you have a plan B, and if that doesn't match, you just go with whatever you have in the tank. So I remember during the Ironman
Absolutely.
Philippines, the bike course was really challenging, had a lot of elevation. There was a point when I was just smiling looking at the hilly course and looking at the mountains. I said I can't do anything much. And then I made a plan B, that I should be slow on the bike, I should take as it comes, and then I'll show my color during the run. And that happened actually. My ranking during the bike coach was very pathetic. It should be maybe 600 or 700, and by the time run finished, my rank was 110 or something like that. So you can always make a strategy and do a good finish.
So there are good moments in the finishes that you had in all of the 5 finishes that you had, and I'm assuming, like you mentioned about Philippines, and you must be having the PR as your favorite, isn't it? The Busselton in Australia. Ingrid?
Yeah, honestly speaking, that course has a flat bike course, and but the run was very hot. I think I found I found the challenge. I mean, whatever is the challenging race, I found it really good. Philippines was amazing because it was hell challenging. There was a thunderstorm. There was a time when I could not handle my bike. I mean, literally, I was praying to God that I should not fall off the bike because there was so much of wind, and the rain droplets were hitting like bullets. And during the run, it was
Right.
so humid. I mean, I remember I had the tan of that race for next 6 months. So those races actually make you stronger on a mental level, and it teaches you a very big lesson. So again, I get back to the same question. There is no fall in the race. I think there is an experience or you win. There are only two things: you experience, you learn lessons, or you win. There is never a loss. There is never a fall.
I would say that the sort of the best weekly mileage is the one that basically your body can support. By that, what I mean is that people have done marathons on 30-40 kilometers per week kind of mileage, and people have also done it on 250 kilometers per week. The key question is basically how much can your body support? Look, to my mind, ideally, what has worked for me over the last few years is that I've been doing, say, 100 to say, sort of say 120-ish over the last, sort of 1 year, only during the peak season. Now, again, sort of one more thing over here is that it's very important to just kind of periodize, for your body. By that, what I mean is that in the sort of 16 weeks, just building up to your race, you want to just at some level sort of start picking up the mileage. Then after the race, just kind of drop it down to like zero, just have some sort of break period. So it's important to just figure out what period of your sort of cycle are you in. But if your question is basically what should be the peak mileage during those 16 weeks, I would say, okay, so look, basically sort of two rules. One is, at the highest level, don't increase your mileage week on week by too much. The 10% rule is great. Basically, if you had, say done 50 kilometers last week, don't make it more than, say 55, 60-ish maximum sort of next week. The other thing, the sort of one more rule is basically every 3-4 weeks, take a sort of down week. So, say 50, 55, 60, back to say, 50. But again, my sort of whole point being, more mileage obviously is better, but only to a point. Basically, don't overdo it to a point where you just sort of get injured. People can handle 100, 150. People can, say for example, some people can only do say 40, 50. All of that is fine, but just sort of know your limitations, only sort of ramp up gradually. And just at the highest level, be sort of very careful about your body, because your body is very, very different from say sort of someone else's body. And just sort of one last point, basically people who you see who do sort of 100, 120, 200 kilometers per week, all of these people have just I mean, look, I mean, the sort of journey has been sort of very long. So, for example, for my first few years, I was doing say 40, 50 kilometers per week. Then sort of, say, 60, 70, 80, 100 now. So that journey takes time. Don't sort of rush the process.
Yes.
Wonderful. Very well answered. Ingrid, what would you say on the same question?
No, I think I agree, very much agree to what Yash had mentioned. And the last point especially is very, very relevant today. Guys, if you look at Yash, I mean, you have to look how many years he has given to this particular process, how many years he has taken to achieve at this point. Now, these numbers of years differ from person to person. Some may take more, some may take less, but yes, it takes to go through the process. So you have to give time. If somebody starts with a marathon, and you have to make your goal realistic, and year by year you have to keep working towards your training, your recovery, and then revise the goal. So if someone is top three marathoner, I mean, look, there are a lot of years has been given to that in order for body to handle that kind of speed, intensity, and mileage. So go progressively, periodize your training, and that's very important. That's one point I would like to mention. I know a lot of people have left, but
Sure, go ahead,
you
Ingrid.
are here. There was a question about D3 and B12. Very, very commonly discussed topic among the plant-based, vegan, or in general. I mean, guys, simple rule. If you want to have the D3 in sufficient level, take sunlight exposure between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 10 to 15 minute exposure per day is more than enough. If you are not able to take that exposure in the weekdays because of your profession or something like that, try to get maximum on the weekend. On Saturday and Sunday, try to expose your body to the sun and get the good amount of vitamin D. The best and the most magnificent source of vitamin D is sunlight. No food can provide you that much of vitamin D. So D3, uh, take the sunlight between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 10 to 15 minutes per day is good enough. And for B12, eat good amount of fruits, vegetables. If required, if it is in deficiency, you can take the supplements. Being on non-veg and veg side, I say non-veg doesn't give you a significant B12 that you should think about changing your lifestyle.